long day to sit here for this conference.
With your confidence in me, I can move mountains.
Is there continuing education attachment?
He'll be right back.
Well, online it didn't have them listed on the program, and I was confused.
Okay, if we can reconvene. Bromley, this is an unruly group. If we can reconvene for a few minutes. If we can reconvene for a few minutes, and George, if you could sit down, and we could all sit down, we could get on with the program. We're going to try to make up for some lost time here. My name is Hunter Morrison. I'm a senior fellow at Cleveland State University and Levin College, and it's my privilege and pleasure to invite you to this session where we're dealing with transit-oriented development corridors and connecting people with opportunity. You have the speaker bios in your folder, so I won't bore you with the accomplishments of our three panelists. But we have representing RTA Jose Feliciano Jr., representing the City of Cleveland, Freddie Collier Jr., the City Planning Director, and representing one of our most transit-oriented, if not the most transit-oriented, of our first suburbs, Shaker Square, Joyce Braverman, the Planning Director. And today we're going to talk about recommendations that were made in the Vibrant Neo Regional Vision, which we discussed, I think, last year, and how that's being realized, how one of those key components is being realized. And I hope I leave you with the understanding that the housing community, the advocacy and development community, has a critical role to play in realizing one of the most important components of this regional vision. This is a vision that was put together over about a 3-year period, supported by a federal grant from the Partnership for Sustainable Communities, of HUD and DOT and EPA. It was adopted unanimously across 12 counties in 2014, went on to win the Daniel Burnham Award from the American Planning Association for the best comprehensive plan in the country in 2015. And it's really incumbent upon those of us who all worked on it, including yourselves, across the region to put it to work. We were very clear in doing this vision that this is not a plan, it's a framework, it's a vision for how the region could move in a different and more sustainable and more resilient way. But we made it very clear in a region that has 12 counties, 5 intergovernmental organizations, 400 municipalities, townships, and villages, and 300 other taxing districts, that it's really incumbent upon all of us in local government and in the associations of local government and in the academic community to carry it out. Here at Cleveland State, working with Youngstown State, we're working with mayors and managers to develop tools to bring these insights to fruition in local government, to give local governments better tools to in fact advance the ideas. But today we're going to talk about what 2 local governments and the most robust of our region's transit agencies are doing collaboratively to connect people and opportunity. So the Vibrant Neo 2040 vision again was developed for the entire region. It's a long-term vision out to 2040. The reason to pick that date is that's what the intergovernmentals, NOACA and AMATS and SCATS down in Canton and Eastgate in the Youngstown area, and NEFCO, which does economic development and water quality down in the Akron-Canton area. These are the planning horizons the federal government asked them to look at. 25-year planning horizon. So we were looking at, okay, where are we headed and what could we do differently, and what does that mean? All of that information is available for you on the Vibrant Neo 2040 site. This is the executive summary. All the data is there if you're interested in pursuing it further. But connecting communities, connecting people and opportunities was one of the principal objectives. The overarching vision objective is to promote investment in our established communities and to promote equity, opportunity, and economic competitiveness by improving access to the region's employment centers. We have spread out. That's no news to anybody in this room. But as a consequence, opportunities have spread further from people. And it's getting worse. And it's been incentivized at any number of levels, so that it is harder to get to work today than it was 25 years ago, because the work is much more spread out, and it requires an automobile to get to many of our jobs. There are 4 themes in Vibrant Neo. One is strengthening our established communities. Second is increasing our transportation choices. Third is protecting our natural resources. And fourth is promoting collaboration and efficiency. About 6,000 people were directly involved across the region in community meetings, which were held in each of the counties or clusters of counties. And these are the themes that emerged from all those discussions, the themes of people across the region, whether we're talking Ashtabula County or Cuyahoga County or down in Medina. These are the themes that people said we really ought to be thinking about and focusing on over the next 25 years. When we get into the weeds about how do we connect people and opportunity, we have 2 broad themes and several specific recommendations that speak to that. In terms of strengthening established communities, we said, and excuse the kind of wonkish language of transportation planning, but develop a robust network of regional job centers connected by multimodal transportation corridors within and between counties. Our job base is spread. People work in multiple counties. We have 12 county transit agencies, and they don't necessarily easily connect to one another. We need to develop a much stronger network of jobs in the transit that connects it. In terms of specifically increasing transportation choices, one is to enhance and coordinate the region's rail and bus system. Again, we got 12 systems. It's not easy to get. It's impossible to get from Shaker Square to downtown Akron to go to work. I tried to do that for 3 years. It's easy to go the other way. You can't go south. That's endemic across the region. Other regions like Chicago, you can cross county lines to get to work. It's very difficult here. And then secondly is enhancing walking and cycling as transportation options to increase regional mobility and improve public health. And NOAC has done a remarkable job of taking that one in particular and encouraging communities to do complete streets, to encouraging communities to connect, and working with metro parks in particular to make that happen. We suggested some very ambitious targets. There are 4 different scenarios. The trend scenario, the current conditions, and then four scenarios that we looked at with regard to all the different aspects. But on the transit side, we looked at the number of jobs, or percentage of jobs near transit, and the percentage of residents near transit. Currently, about 49% of the jobs are near transit. If we continue in the direction we're going, it drops. And if we see additional growth with a lot more sprawl, it drops further. We propose that doing things differently, investing in our established communities, we could maintain and in fact grow the number of jobs close to transit. In terms of the number of residents close to transit, about 1/3 across the region. It will drop to about 1/4 on the trend. We're suggesting by doing things differently, we should get above 1/3 and grow. But the targets at the bottom are the ones I want to focus on. Again, to get to where we ought to be, to provide broader opportunities, at least 65% of jobs should be near frequent transit systems, 55% by 2020, 60% by 2030. Now that's a heck of a goal, but it points to what we need to be doing collaboratively to provide opportunities. And the housing, at least half the residents should be live near frequent transit, aiming again for 38% by 2020 and 44% by 2030. That means a much more intentional effort to put housing opportunities close to the bus and rail lines that exist, particularly in Cuyahoga County, where we have our best and most robust system. We looked at regional job centers and development corridors, and the biggest ones, obviously, are the Downtown University Circle, Downtown Midtown University Circle corridor in the city of Cleveland, the 271 corridor that continues to emerge as an edge city on the east side, and the Independence, 77 Independence District, and connected, as you can see, by the freeway network. We also then looked at where the jobs are within Cuyahoga County and how those relate to what have come to be known as the priority transit corridors. And again, without getting into the weeds, what you see is the transit lines do a pretty good job of connecting to opportunities until you get out to the 271 corridor, where it kind of breaks down. And that the biggest concentration of jobs is, as we all know, between downtown and University Circle. With RTAs, we collaborated to look at transit propensity, which is a combination of income and jobs and other conditions. And what we see, again, is the city of Cleveland and the first suburbs have the highest propensity for transit. So that begins to suggest the strategy of connecting those communities, using that network and putting more jobs close to those lines. Jose will get into the details on the transit corridors, but one of the most important things that RTA has done is to designate a set of priority transit corridors, building off of the work that was done in the past on Euclid Avenue and on Clifton, to identify a fan pattern of transit corridors on our major roads. This is also important because it connects these job centers in the city of Cleveland and in the 271 corridor and down potentially as far as the Independence corridor with the neighborhoods in Cleveland and in the first suburbs. This is the connecting fabric that we can use for collaborative development. We drilled down working with the first suburbs. I made a presentation to them a couple of years ago to look at, okay, what does this really mean? We took two of the corridors on the west side, Detroit and Lorraine, looking at population density, job density, zoning and land use, and transit-friendly density. And what we found, these are the Detroit line is the red line to the north, the Lorraine line is the one to the south, going through basically the city of Cleveland, Lakewood, Rocky River, out into Olmsted. And what we see in terms of the population density is they run through some fairly intensely populated areas, particularly in Cleveland and in Lakewood. In terms of the job density, it does a pretty good job of connecting jobs not just in the city of Cleveland, but in those corridors. There are jobs in Lakewood, and the Lakewood's in the center of Lakewood. There are jobs along the border of Lakewood and the city of Cleveland. There are jobs down also by the airport and the like. So how are we doing that? This as a planner was the really most important graphic, and it may be hard to see from a distance, but what we did with our land use analysis is divide all of the land use into density gradients that would examine whether a community could support regular transit. And what you see in sort of the dark orangey brown are those neighborhoods in both the city and the suburbs, which were laid out and planned at a density that will support frequent transit. That should come as no surprise. These communities were developed in the period between the First World War and the Second World War, when streetcars and ultimately buses and some of the rail lines were the predominant method of getting around. So they can support the density, and if you squint, it looks like Portland. So I made the point to the first suburbs that you are unified with the city of Cleveland and the city of Cleveland's neighborhoods in a network of communities that support transit and that transit could be part of your value proposition, your development program. And then we also looked at the zoning, the current zoning. And what we saw, not surprisingly, for anybody who's familiar with Cleveland neighborhoods in the first suburbs, is that the zoning along these corridors, look at Detroit, look at Lorraine, has a lot of red, which is retail, little retail storefronts that were developed along the streetcar lines. Those are ideal sites for mixed-use, multi-story, higher density housing that integrates extremely well with single-family housing right behind the line. Portland has done a remarkable job of that, taking out one-story underperforming retail and putting in 3 or 4-story housing with the ground floor being retail, to create density and vitality and support the neighborhood behind it without intruding too far into it. And putting in that zone, and these are the zones, those are the walking zones along the corridors, putting into the zone the type of density and opportunity that would support a range of housing, from tax credit and low moderate income housing to high-end housing of people who don't want to drive or want the opportunity to use transit. So we saw some opportunities there. So I'm going to turn it over then now to Jose to talk about what the authority has been doing to advance advanced transit-oriented development and to build out these priority transit corridors.
Thank you, Hunter.